Hello and welcome to Painting with Snicks. Today we're going to paint a beautiful tulip. This is what we will be painting today, this tulip here. And I'm going to give you a rundown on the materials that you need. And since this is my first video, I'm going to let you know now that you'll be needing these materials for all of my videos. So I'm going to make it easy on you. You can just stock up now, and then going forward, you will have the materials that you need. So we're working with acrylic paint today. So let me show you the ones that I tend to buy. This is one of your most, beginner brands of acrylic paint. So I'm always going to grab us this red here, this yellow, and I'm going to list all these materials below so that you'll be good. Blue, this brown, and this white right here. So once you have this, you'll be set up for every painting that I will be sharing on this channel. And last but not least, you're going to need some palette paper, or you can use a paper plate, you can use a piece of glass, you can use a piece of plastic, really anything. I like using the palette paper because I am not the best at cleaning up, and when I'm done, I just want to be done. So I will use this and just throw it out when I'm done. But I do find ways to recycle this paper, and I could talk about that in another video. So let's get started. All right, so to get started, we're gonna start off by just getting these basic shapes down, and then we're going to move right into our back. All right, and we're just gonna use brown to map out this shape right here. So I'm gonna grab my brown and my palette, and we're just going to squeeze some brown and get started with our medium-sized brush. All right. And you guys may notice within my videos that I will have a studio assistant coming around. That's Miles, my cat. He's very helpful. So hopefully we don't have too many scenarios of him trying to knock my brush out of my hands, because that will happen sometimes. All right, so I have my brown, just mixing it up a little bit, getting it on the brush. So let's get started with our shapes. Alrighty, so we have one leaf that is coming up here. So let's just shape this here. And the best thing about acrylic paint that I love to tell people is that it dries quickly. So if there's any mistakes, we could paint over it. You could draw this like 5 times if you don't like it, and we can choose what we like, and then we can paint over what we don't like. So I'm not going too thick with the paint, because obviously the thinner I'm painting, the quicker it's going to dry. And since we want this to dry pretty quickly so that we can get moving, I'm applying it then. So now I see that the stem is going to go about a little bit higher than halfway. So just a simple line there. And then we have our bulb at the top. So to do that, it's just going to be like, kind of like a teardrop shape we can draw. Thickening mine just a little bit there. And then coming here, there's another leaf that like meets the top of the tulip. So it actually runs into it a little bit like that. And then it comes down like this. The thing about, painting like this is nobody knows what your source image was, and flowers, because they're, found in nature, they're always going to be a little bit different. So, if your leaf goes up to here, or if it goes out to the side, like, it's not going to make a huge difference. So don't stress yourself out too much with, having to be exactly the way that this looks. And then I'm going to start here for this last leaf. and it comes here to meet at the bottom, and then close it out right here. So really just like these basic shapes to get us started. And I'm really going light with the paint, as you can see, and so I'm reinforcing these lines just a little bit here, but this might also have to do with my brush being a little dried out and I'm not really absorbing that much paint. I'm sure the brushes that you're working with are going to be a lot cleaner and taking in the paint a lot easier. Alrighty, let's mix our purple. So to do that, we are going to take our blue, and we're gonna take, I'm probably gonna need more than that. I'll show you guys, I'm running low on this blue, so I have to give it a good shake. There we go. I would say about a quarter size amount of each color. So that's about what I have there. And let's start by mixing just these two colors together. Because we're gonna roll right into painting with our bigger brush, I am going to just mix with it because it's gonna be on the brush anyways. And anytime you take your brush out of the water, just give it a little bit of a dry on the towel. So mixing, I am just going to mix like this. All right. So we got a nice purple here. Actually, I'm pretty happy with how that purple turned out. As you can see. And then the purple in the background of the image that we're creating is a bit lighter. So I am going to take some white and I am going to mix little, maybe like chocolate chip size bit of white in, and then mix it up, and we're lightening it up just a bit. Now, in this image that we're recreating, as you can see, it's darker at the top and lighter at the bottom. So we're gonna start towards the top, and then once we get to the bottom, we're gonna add some more white to this paint so that we can get that gradual effect. So take your big brush. I would load it up with quite a bit of paint because, you know, we're really going all out here and we want to make it, you know, easier on us so that we can just keep flowing with this paint. And it's sort of up to you if you want to paint the edges, like the sides of your painting or not. So that's just sort of depending on your preference. But if you hang it on a wall, it's kind of nice to have those sides done. Some people like to frame their paintings, with like a wooden frame. So there's that option too. And if you do have like a wooden frame that's going around the outside, you don't really need to have those edges done. And you may begin to run out of paint, and you're going to just mix it up the exact same way. So I am just going to continue. As you can see, I am making horizontal strokes so far. I think doing horizontal is going to be your best bet. I mean, you can apply it like this, but then like with the strokes, you're going to just like clean it up a little bit. But honestly, it's not a big deal if you even just, you know, are making your strokes like, you know, crossing back and forth. It's really just like the kind of texture that you want in the background. So it's not a huge deal. So if you want like more of like a fuzzy texture, you can do that. But if you want something that looks like a little more pristine, you may want to be more exact with your strokes. So we're going to continue going to about, I would say where I am now, like 1/3 of the way down. with this purple until we're gonna start adding some white. And there is my Miles here to help out. So I guess while I paint, I'll tell you guys a little bit about, you know, my story, since this is my first video. I was a BYOB sip and paint instructor for quite some time. I would say in the peak of, you know, that trend sort of starting. I graduated from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, and I was looking for a job, and I had a friend that was hiring for this role. So I felt really lucky. It was literally perfect, and this is like my most favorite job that I've ever had, because I got to create paintings and I got to paint and teach people how to paint who were just really excited to learn. There were some times where, you know, where I was doing some like bachelorette parties, and, you know, the girls would have a lot of fun and maybe not take things as seriously. But then there would be those classes where the group was like really into it, and not gonna lie, those were my favorite classes, but no matter what, I always had fun. And I did get to do a few classes with kids as well. All right, so I'm coming into a situation, and this is a good learning for everybody. I just remixed more of this color, and as you guys can see, it's not really matching. It's a little bit too much on the red side. So I'm going to add a little bit more blue. Since I'm so low on blue, it's like not wanting to come out for me. But just adding a little bit more should get us to that purple that we want to be at. Because we're using such basic colors to just get started, I think mixing paint is a lot simpler than it would be, you know, if you see those people using colors straight from the tube that are like all these different shades of blue or all these different shades of green. I think it's just best to like start with our basic colors. All right, I got the color back. It's perfect. And you know, as you can see, there's some areas, you know, where you can still see the white. So I'm just gonna like go over those quickly with this extra paint that I have. Perfect. And we're going a little bit more down with the paint. And I'm going to get in between the shapes right here. And if you accidentally get a little bit inside the shape, that's okay, because it's going to dry. And it's going to dry quick. All right, perfect. So we have that first section done. Now, like I said, we were going to add some white. So I'm going to add a chocolate chip size of white and give it a little mix. And let me show you before you get to mixing. I'm only really mixing it here because I might want to add some darker shades in a bit. So let's start applying this lighter shade. And I'm leaving like a little gap here because we're going to do some blending between the two colors in a minute, so that we could sort of get that like gradual ombre effect. So we'll be mixing colors right on the canvas. And let's go down a little bit more. And sometimes the paint drying quickly is like a blessing and a curse, because if you're working too slow and you want to do like a gradual effect, it's going to dry on you. You're not going to be able to do that mixing as easily. So if you don't want to go this far with your purple and you just want to get right to mixing, you can do that too. All right, so now I have some of that, and this is what we're going to do. We're going to go with horizontal, and we're going to go back and forth, and then I'm going to pull up from the darker. So we're sort of just like blending them and mixing them together right on the canvas. And this is where I think having those horizontal lines sort of helps, because it helps with this gradual mixing effect. See how I'm bringing some of that light color up? And then don't forget to get in between. And then I'm bringing some of that light color up again. So you can see how it's, you know, already starting that look. I'm noticing on the camera this is looking really shiny and light. It's only looking that way because the sun is hitting it, but once it dries, you will see. All right, so we got our medium color in the middle. Now we're gonna add a little bit more white, and we're gonna get this bottom part here. And I'm gonna do that same thing. So again, I added like about a chocolate chip size of white. And you can even do your edges if you want at the very end. So don't stress about that. All right, now again, I'm bringing up that white and I'm brushing it right onto that. I called it white, the lighter purple, and I'm brushing that lighter purple up there. So this is gonna be something that we do a lot in these videos because a lot of different paintings call for this sort of effect, especially sunsets. I know a lot of people really like painting sunsets, so you're gonna see this. So again, bringing that lighter purple up. And don't forget, like I almost did, to get this middle part here and this middle part here. Almost done with the background, and then we're going to move along, but we're going to do some fine tuning to this background while the paint is still wet. And this is where we can get to perfecting if we would like to. Perfect. Everything is nicely filled in. And my palette looks a bit like this. So I have some dark paint to pull from, I have some medium paint to pull from, and I have some lighter paint to pull from. So what I'm gonna do is kind of go back over that top. So I'm just wiping paint off with my towel right now. And I'm gonna go back in with this darker and just clean up a little bit. And also take it a little bit here, like bring it down just a little bit. So we're doing some more mixing again. Beautiful. And just sort of cleaning things up, cleaning up those lines. Luckily everything is still nice and wet. So now I'm just like taking the brush. Doesn't have a ton of paint on it, but what that brush is doing is helping with that texture, smoothing things out. Like I said, we can have whatever sort of texture we want in the background, but I am going to just make mine pretty smooth. And by using this brush like this, it allows me to keep it smooth. And then I'm going to add a little bit more white towards the bottom. So what I'm gonna do for that is give myself another squeeze of white, mix it in. I didn't even clean my brush this time because this white is pretty strong and it's going to brighten up that brush again. And I'm gonna go right from the bottom because this is my lightest white and just go right into it. And now I'm just going back and forth towards the bottom and going up. And as I go up, I have less paint on my brush, meaning less paint gets distributed and mixed here. Alrighty, looking good so far. We can, if you're doing this with a group or if you're doing this by yourself, this is a good time. If you needed to take a break, you can, because everything's done here and dry. Of course, we can always go back into it if we need to, but this is a good little pause point. So I'm also gonna pause, drink some water, and then we're gonna move on to the tulip. All right, we're back from our break. I probably will keep continuing to work with this palette paper, but you can move on to the next page if you would like, or take another paper plate, or however you're doing it, because we're gonna start mixing our green. So to do that, we're going to need blue again, and we're going to need yellow. So I'm gonna start with equal parts blue and equal parts yellow. So pretty similar to how we mixed our background. So I have pretty equal parts there. And then I'm going to take a brush. I think we're gonna use, let's go right in with our medium brush now. This one looks good. And perfect. All right, so I'm just gonna mix with my brush, swirl it up. Pretty. I got this pretty green here, and looks like our painting has, similar to our picture, our reference picture, has about 3 shades of green, similar to what we have with our background. But there's one little thing we're gonna do differently. We're going to plop some of this green, maybe over here, and we should still maybe have some of our brown. I'm just gonna take a little blop of it and mix it in. And this is just darkening it. The one thing you'll notice about me is I never use black. We're never using black. That is something that most painters, probably all of them, are taught in traditional painting courses. The way to actually make black, if you're learning how to paint, they'll teach you and they'll tell you to basically you mix every color possible to make black. Now I'm not making black in this situation, but I am darkening that green just a little bit, and that bit of brown does a really great job of it. So instead of mixing black in with this, we're just mixing that dark brown. But if we do need to make black in a future video, I will show you. It's pretty simple because it's basically every color. So now we have our dark shade. Let's just get started with our shadows, and then we'll move on and see if we need to do any other colors after that. So we have shadows in a few places. Well, let me show you the source image so you know what I'm talking about. All right, so we have a shadow in all 3 of these. We have a shadow in here, we have a shadow in here, we have a shadow in here, and we have a shadow in between right there. So we're just doing the leaves right now. And we also have a shadow on the side of the stem there. So let's start with this guy right here on the right. And let's start applying the shadow. So there's like the leaves like folded in half here. And I don't know how long your break was, but mine wasn't very long, so my background is still kind of wet. So I'm being careful. You might accidentally mix some of your purple in with your dark shade, and that's okay. Just clean off your brush. I have a little purple there. It's gonna be fine. I'm gonna end up painting over it, so it's all good. And then there's a little dark in the center of this leaf, so I'm just gonna plop a little bit down there. And we're good for now. We'll come back to this, but we have our dark shade in here. Actually, I'm going to apply a little bit darker right here in the middle. Perfect. Good for now. And then we have a darker throughout this whole leaf, like towards the middle. So, you know, for me, it's a little easier to work with the wet background, but if you want, you can take a little bit of a longer break and just wait for that background to dry, but because it will make it easier for you. And I'm just too excited. I just want to get going. And there's a little pocket right here that we should have painted purple, so we'll go back into that. So basically this whole leaf is pretty dark, so I'm going full in. And as we saw before, starting with the dark, you know, we were always able to add the lighter shades to that paint, even if it was wet. So it's, in my opinion, I think it's easier to start with the dark. And then let's do that stem. We'll just go straight with the brush for the stem. And it kind of like meets here. Perfect. The other side of the stem is lighter, so we'll end up going in there. Let's just add like a little bit, like a little V right there, so that we have like a little bit of a shadow at the bottom of the tulip. We'll end up painting over that, but I just like that it's reinforcing that right there. And then this part of the leaf, it kind of like folds in like this. So I'm painting just like that. And I'm gonna thicken this leaf a little bit. And then the other thing it has is at the bottom, it has some dark here. And there. It's like a pointy. It's gonna be pointed here with the lighter shade. So perfect. Looking good. Alrighty. So next we are going to bring in our medium shade. So let's clean off our brush. I'm just doing mine in the towel, but you can do water then towel, up to you. And now that I'm looking at this green, I think it needs a little bit more yellow. So let's add some more yellow. Let's see. Maybe like, I'm adding like 2 chocolate chip size of yellow here. But really, you're just gonna add a little bit at a time till we get that green that we like. Maybe let's go in with another little blob, another chocolate chip. Everyone's gonna be wanting chocolate chip cookies after this because I keep saying chocolate chip. All right, let's see. A little bit lighter because of that yellow. We'll see how this looks next to it, and if we want to add more, we can. All right, so I'm gonna start right here. Oh yeah, this is not looking light enough. That's okay. We will add some more yellow to it. There's quite a contrast between the two. Yeah, that's better. And I'm gonna give that area just a moment to dry, and I'm gonna go right over here with some of that. And get this left side because it's very light over here. Perfect. So I'm just doing some strokes here on this left side. Ta-da! All right. And I'm gonna leave that to be for a moment. Let's take some of this lighter, and we have some here, and then we have some here on the right. And yeah, the contrast does not look huge yet, but we're gonna go back in with some green and white. And like, let's get this right side here now too. But yeah, this is why I love starting out painting with acrylic paint, because it is so forgiving. So it really makes painting fun because we're not stressing out as much. So what I just did there is I just crossed here, because this here is a lighter part and then this is the dark shadow here. I know it's probably hard to see the huge difference right now, but we will see it in a moment. And then let's go with this medium shade back on the stem. You might not realize this, or you might be realizing at this point, but I actually never have rehearsed painting tutorials. When I did them in person, just go for it. I could look at the painting and I can tell you exactly what to do. So you're like in this experience right with me. And I'm going to add go back in with the dark here because some of that paint was lifting off. Perfect. All right, looking good so far. I'm gonna let this dry halfway. So it's not gonna be fully dry. It's gonna be halfway dry. And this is because paint mixes a little differently when it is like halfway dry. So little things to know. Let's let this dry a little bit before we add our lighter colors, and let's move on to the moment we've all been waiting for, and that is our bulb right here. And I'm going to test the paint around it. This paint is slightly wet, but it's mainly dry. So as you can see, I don't have too much paint on my finger from it, so I'm confident that we can go in there. All right, so maybe you're at the point like this, like me, where there's a lot of colors going on, a lot of paint, and maybe you want something fresh, so feel free to start fresh. I'm actually going to pull, this paint still kind of looks dry, like looks a little wet to me. I'm actually going to add some red to it. So what we're doing is we're making purple again, but we're making purple with more red this time. So we're gonna mix blue and red, but we're gonna have a majority red. And you can mix into that dark purple that you already had. You can keep it if you wanna go back into your background and do your sides, and you can make a fresh one. I try to like conserve paint, especially right now since you guys see that I'm running out of my blue. So it's sort of up to you. Adding a little bit more red again. Sometimes mixing can take a minute to get to the exact thing that you want. Adding a little blue again. That looks better. I'll show you guys. So as you can see, same colors, blue and red were mixed together just like we did with the background, but there's more red in here. So it's giving us a bit more of a pinky tulip color. We can switch now if we want to our smaller size brush. Alrighty, so on this tulip, you'll see that the right side has more, or left, whatever it's showing for you guys, but my right, it's showing that it is like a darker purple, and then it gets lighter to the left, and then we have like one shadow crease towards the left side. So I'm gonna start with this side with the darker. And in the picture, it overlaps the leaf a bit, so you can do that. Also, this is a great opportunity to like reshape it a bit if you want. If you want your tulip bulb to be a little bit bigger, if you drew it and you're not happy with the size of it. And really similar, again, to how we're sort of doing everything since we've done the background is, you know, starting with the dark and then going light and doing a little mixing on the canvas. And then there, remember there's that one dark spot, so I'm gonna go here and just do like a line for that dark spot. And also while I'm adding paint, since I am using that smaller brush, I'm doing just like little tiny strokes towards the top so that you can like see those individual petals. All right, that's perfect. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add some white to that mixture. So I'm gonna add in some white here. And I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. Maybe 2 chocolate chips, depending on how much paint you're working with at this moment. But as you can see here, I have my light next to my dark, and then we're gonna make our own in-between color while we're working here. So make sure your brush is either cleaned off or you got a nice amount of lighter paint on it. So I noticed that the light comes from the bottom, so I am going to start like this. 2 strokes there. We're gonna go right up in here with it. Here on the right. And up through here. So really just getting like our lightest points. There's also like a little lightness there. There's a little lightness through here. Mixed it right in there. Maybe like a little bit more. And then there. Perfect. Now let's clean off our brush and let's make it like dry because we're gonna do some mixing right on here. On dry. Now we're gonna just like pull some of that darker shade down, and we're just using this to add and mix some of this texture. We're not gonna really touch this right side because remember that's the darkest. But we're just using these vertical strokes to sort of blend it together. And I just picked up a little bit of lighter shade because I just want to add some like points to the top there. Perfect. We're good for now here. But if you want, you can add a little darker here. Perfect. And we're gonna do some, actually, what we are gonna do before we do let some drying happen is there's like a gradual white into green at the bottom of the tulip. So I'm going to put some white on my canvas or on my palette like that. And I'm going to go take a teeny bit of this green and I'm gonna mix it together so it's like the lightest light green. So like that color. And what I'm gonna do is like, make sure there is not too much on my brush. And I'm going to just do these like tiny little strokes here. And it is mixing with this purple, which is okay. And you might want to just like keep drying your brush off because you're going to be picking up some of that purple paint a little bit. All right, and now that I have that, Then, this is like wet. I just dried off my brush, and I'm just gonna like do some strokes up. So I'm sort of taking some of that white mixed with green and I'm pulling it up. And now we have like the beginning of the light that will shade into that really light green. But I still kind of want to give this a minute to dry because we still have some wet paint right there. So while we wait for that to dry, and we have that light green that we're going to be using later, we will move on to, I could really use some more water in here. We're going to move into adding some more of these highlights here on the leaves. So let's go back to this medium green and let's add a little dollop of yellow. And I'm going to add a tiny dollop of white. So it's going to be like about that. And then grab my smaller brush again. And I'm going to mix that in. You'll see the white is powerful. I know we're tempted, like me, to use white because it's so pretty when it's mixed with paint, but we want to be careful. So I have like this green right here, which is perfect. It's exactly what we need. So we're going to go back into all of our light spots. So let's go back up here to this point. Ooh, so nice. And then it folds over. Go here. There you go. Look at that dimension that we're adding. Then I'm going to pull from the bottom here. And then I'm going right here because there's a little light, but there's still some dark mixed in. So what I'm doing, I don't really have a ton of paint. I'm just pulling it down a little bit, so like that medium shade is in there still. So already, look at that dimension that we've added. It's coming together. Painting is so fun. There's like a little light highlight here. So I'm just gonna plop some paint there. And there's a really light highlight here, so I'm gonna get that side. If there's something that you want to learn how to paint, or like a painting that you want to copy, I could even show you how to do that. And then there were some highlights coming from the bottom here. So I'm pulling some of that up. And then we're going to go back in a moment with some of that darker green because there's quite a shadow here. So we should be good there. And then this leaf here doesn't have a ton of highlight. It has some coming from the side. And then coming across here. And then there's a little bit on the right. Beautiful. And then there's like a little dot on the top of this leaf. So I just did a little dollop there. And then there's a highlight on that side. And then this stem. So this stem is pretty because it has a little purple mixed in. Let's go back to this. Let's pull a little purple, a little green, and then a little bit of this white and mix it together. It's perfect for our stem. So let's go right in with our stem here. I'm gonna get a little more green into that. A little more. There we go. And let's bring it all the way up. Let's do this little triangle here. Upside down triangle. Hi, baby. And then, because our paint is still white here, we're gonna do a little white, did I say wet? We're gonna do, I don't have a ton on my brush. I'm just doing a couple of dabs here so that I'm blending that light green with that light purple. Perfect. Don't forget, we still have this little guy here we have to fix, so I haven't forgotten. Okay, it's fun to paint and then see what it looks like in the video. It's looking really good. Thing about painting that I always have to remind people is paintings are not meant to be viewed like this. No, they're meant to be viewed from farther back. So if at any point in any of these painting videos you need to take a minute, pause it and take a step back from your painting, because it's gonna look really good. Because like I said, we're not supposed to look at paintings like this. Paintings are supposed to be on a wall. They're supposed to be viewed from a distance. So that always helps. Alrighty, I'm gonna go back in with a little bit of this purple, like a tiny, tiny bit, and use it to sort of blend these together, sort of like we've been doing. Perfect. There we go. Awesome. All right, we're nearing the end. In the meantime, actually, let's let this dry. We'll go in with our purple in a bit. If you have some areas here, like I have here, that like have dried and they can use like some more paint because you could see some of the canvas underneath, I'm just gonna go in and darken it a little bit. And then remember, we wanted to get that inside. My green is actually already pretty dry, so I'm gonna mix a little bit more. We don't need a ton, but remember the dark green was blue, yellow, and then a little bit of that brown. I don't know what I did with it, with my brown. Oh, but I actually have some on my palette still that I'll just mix right in to get that darker green. Yours might still be wet. You may still just be able to go right in with it. Perfect. It's pretty dark here in the center. So I just went right in there. There's a little dark up here that I'll add. I'm gonna add a little here to the right, because remember when I started, my background was still kind of wet, so I was being kind of careful. Now if you want, you can just add some size to the leaves. If you also had the same situation where your background was still kind of light. And now that we know how to mix all the colors, we can go back in with paint and do a couple more layers if we'd like, if we need to. You know, if some of that canvas is showing through. And I am going really fast, but please, in these videos, feel free to pause, take your time, enjoy. It's pretty amazing how painting can really give your brain a second to be calm and relax and just think about the painting, which we all can use, you know, some breaks from real world. Alrighty, this is looking good. Actually, I see a little canvas peeking through here. Perfect. Alrighty. Let's see, where do we want to go next? Actually, you know what I'm noticing? There's a little bit of dark or like a medium green that defines the stem right here. So if you want, you could go in with your small brush and define that a little bit. Just slowly light them out. And I did promise us that we would fill in this gap right here. It's so tiny. But we should still fill it in because we don't want that dark purple there. So let's mix our background color again. And you might need to do this because you might want to go back into your background anyways. Now that it's dry, you might see some canvas showing. So I just cleaned off my brush. I'm going to remix that background color, equal parts blue, equal parts red. Perfect. And I'm just going to take my small brush and maybe it needs a little more blue. And I'm just like taking a little bit out here. There we go. So that it all kind of flows. This is again a time where you, now that you have some of your leaves drying, you can do some cleaning with your background, and you can do some deleting and editing. So if I needed to thin the stem a little bit, I can do that. Or if, you know, I painted outside the lines, I can clean up here. Just remember that when we're adding the color in the background, we're adjusting it as needed with a little bit of white. So if I'm adding to this section here, I might want to add a little white to the purple. Or if you want your background to be a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Abstract. You can have fun with the purple and add it how you please. Because even in this photo, you know, it's not perfectly ombre. There we go. So now it's gonna be up to you, this rest of it. We know what we're doing. We know how to mix the colors. You know, we know what brushes to use. We know what we're gonna do to clean things up. We could even, what I'm gonna do with my extra time is I'm going to add a little bit more texture to this flower. So let's see, I'm gonna add a little bit of the, I'm gonna add some of this purple with a little of the white, and I'm, you know, gonna make some light strokes because there is some of that texture in that flower in this photograph. So I'm just using the edge of my brush to add a little bit there. Now I may even want to darken the edge a little bit. So you're really just fine-tuning as you please. Paintings, as you've seen, some are very detailed, some are not, some are more about, you know, just the color and the brush strokes. So it's really just, at this point, what type of painting you want. So we're at the end. Like I said, keep going as you please. But we have our tulip, and that is it. So thank you. Like I said, or maybe I didn't say this, but I'm going to have videos every week, tutorials like this one. If you get those basic materials, you'll be set up for the rest of the videos. And please subscribe so you'll know when those videos come out. And if you followed along this long, wow, you did it. Congratulations. Might be your first tutorial, so just amazing. I've had many, many, many years of practice, so it might look easier for me, and you're gonna get there one day. So great job. Thank you. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye.